back with another episode of my knitting video podcast. I have a fair amount of updates. I have a few projects that I started recently. I finished a couple of different ones, I think one of which was not shared in the previous podcast. I've not started that yet. And I have updates on some other whips that you have seen before. So that's a good amount of things to talk about. I hope the lighting's okay. I hope there's not too much background noise because I'm filming this at a bit of an odd time. My mum's at home, she's doing like house things and it's like 7 p.m, but it's really the only time that I have this week to film this. And I think if I wait until the weekend or next week, that would just be too much to talk about. So I hope everything's good in that sense. I will briefly mention what I'm wearing before we get started. I am wearing the Barbroe top. This is a pattern by KnittingFlem or Pernille Larsen, and I think it was a finished object in the last episode, episode 6, so I will leave that linked below in case you want more details. I'm not going to go too in depth about it now, but it is an all-over lace camisole. It's knit bottom up, and I knit this in the KnittingFlem Merino in the colorway Licorice on 3mm needles. It's a really lovely cami. I'm super happy with it. I've been wearing it quite a lot. The lace is a bit see-through, as you can probably tell, but I've still been getting plenty of wear out of it. I don't find it too difficult to wear out or anything, and it's really comfortable and it's quite warm, so would definitely recommend. And I'm very much thinking about knitting the blouse version of this pattern for the autumn because it's such a beautiful lace pattern and it's really quite easy to knit as well. It's very easy to memorize, and it's not, there's like one row where you're really doing eyelets and then the rest of it is just decreases, but there's a lot of knit rows in between, so it goes by quite quickly, I find, as well. So would very much recommend this, but if you want to hear me talk more about it, I go more in depth about it in my last video. I have 2 finished objects to talk about today. I guess I'm gonna start with the one that was a work in progress last time, and that's essentially just been my main whip for this month, and that is my self-drafted polo t-shirt. Here she is. This is knit actually coincidentally in the same yarn as I used for this. I started knitting this with the leftovers that I had from this top, which only took I think 75 grams of yarn, so I had half of a 50 gram ball left over, and then I think I used 2.5 more. So overall I think I used about 3 balls of yarn to knit this, and this was something I was really curious to try and make, and it's a self-drafted piece, but really I was copying a t-shirt that I already have and that I really like the fit of, I really like the look of, and so I essentially just took measurements from that and turned that into a pattern based on a gauge swatch that I made. I do actually have the t-shirt here because last time I don't think I showed it, and I think it makes a bit more sense if I showed this one. I think it's a bit blown out, but it's just a really cute, like slightly cropped polo neck with fairly short sleeves, and it has this really lovely look for the waist where it has a bit of waist shaping, so it goes in and then it goes back out, that I really wanted to emulate for this. So I'm gonna button this up because I think it makes it a bit easier to show, but the way I went about this was I took measurements from it. I made a gauge swatch. This is again the KnittingFlem Merino, and I got a 28 stitch by 40 row gauge in stockinette on 3mm needles, and then I essentially converted all of my measurements into like stitch counts and increases and all of that. And so to keep it as similar to the original as possible and to really just make things as easy as possible for myself, I kept it a drop shoulder construction because I thought it was the most similar to what the original garment actually is. It has like a seam line going across the shoulder, and then like kind of the look of a set-in sleeve. I know nothing about like sewing construction, so I hope that sort of made sense, but in knitting terms it looked like a drop shoulder to me. I did think that it would be cool to do either a contiguous shoulder construction or a saddle shoulder, because I did one saddle shoulder jumper over the winter, the Sweater number 29 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, and I think the fit of that is just so good, and I think it would look so good on a t-shirt. And I know that the, what's it called? The Tombow tee by Florence Miller, I think has a contiguous shoulder construction, and a lot of people talk about how the fit of that is really good. So I thought it would look really nice for this too, but I've only ever made like one saddle shoulder and one contiguous shoulder piece, and so I didn't feel very confident in, you know, figuring that out for myself, especially when I had such a clear reference for a drop shoulder. So that's what I ended up going with. So I cast on at the back of the neck, and then I worked increases to shape the shoulders to essentially make a trapezoid. I will say my increases for this could look neater. I later realized that here, the way that I was working my increases was like one stitch in from my edge, and that kind of affected the look of my edge stitches, which in turn affected the look of my pickup edge when I then like picked up stitches for the two shoulder panels and the set-in sleeve essentially. So next time I would definitely work increases like 3 stitches in from the edge probably. I looked at a couple of patterns that I followed before and that I know have really neat increases, and I think all of them have increases like 2 or 3 stitches in from the edge. So I'm going to keep that in mind for next time, and I thought I would mention it, but it doesn't look bad by any means, but it does, especially on the sleeves, I think the pickup is a little bit gapey and it could be neater. Anyways, worked that increases for the back, and then I worked straight for a bit. I did some more increases for the armhole shaping, and then I put my stitches on hold and I picked up stitches either side for working the 2 front halves. The way that I wanted to do this was because I wanted obviously a button band for the polo tee, which I did make with actual buttonholes and buttons. I think it looks really sweet unbuttoned as well, but I didn't want the option to be there. And I obviously wanted it to be a round neck. So I worked shaping for the round neck, and then instead of working that and then connecting the 2 halves, I left essentially a gap in between them, and I worked straight down from there for a while. And then I connected them, so there was essentially like a rectangle hole here in the middle where I then picked up stitches and worked the button bands. And then once I had the 2 halves of the fronts joined together, I worked increases for the armholes, and then I joined everything together in the round with the back as well. From there, I think I put the garment on hold and I worked the sleeves first. I can't remember if I started working a bit of the body before doing the sleeves or what, but I wanted to do the sleeves before finishing the body because I thought I was playing a bit of a game of yarn chicken. As it turns out I wasn't, because I do have a fair amount of yarn left. I've not weighed this yet. I will, and then I'll put on screen how much yarn I have left. But I think this is maybe like 20 grams of yarn, 15 to 20 grams of yarn. So it was okay, but I wanted to work the sleeves first just to make sure. So I did the sleeves, I picked up stitches all the way around, I worked short rows to shape the sleeve cap, and then I knit straight for a while, and then I did a folded hem. Once I finished the body, I actually realized I had a good amount of yarn left over still, and so I actually ripped back the folded hem and I added more length to the sleeves. So I think right now I maybe have like 4 centimeters of knitting kind of from the underarm before the hem, and then the folded hem is about 2 centimeters, I would say. So the way that I did the folded hem is once I got to a length that I was happy with, I knit 10 rows, and then I did a per row to essentially encourage the fabric to fold inwards. I know some people do it for like collars and stuff, and I think it gave a really, really neat look. And then I knit 9 more rows, and then I bound off. Originally I bound off, like the first time I did it, I bound off with a surprisingly stretchy bind off because I tend to bind off quite tightly, and I was afraid that that would affect the stretchiness of the sleeves and the like how comfortable they were going to be. But when I unpicked it and redid it to add more length to the sleeves, I realized that that really wasn't necessary, and so I ended up just binding off like normal, and then I sewed it down. I could have knitted together with the stitches on like the 10th row, but I didn't really want to mess around with picking those up from the wrong side. It just felt more complicated than sewing it down. I didn't really sew it down like that neatly. I don't think I did like every single stitch. I just kind of basted it in place really, but I think it looks fine from the outside. It's black yarn anyway, so you can't tell, but I think it looks really neat anyway, so I'm happy I went with that. I did for a minute think about, when I redid it, I thought about doing a picot edge instead. I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I like the simplicity of the look, but I do think it would be really cute if you wanted to make something similar and you did a picot edge for the sleeve. I think it would be a really sweet touch, but I'm happy that I just kept it straight and very plain. I think it makes it very wearable. And then I went back and I did the collar actually before finishing the body. I think I probably did the collar before I did the sleeves as well. Anyways, doesn't really matter. The way that I went about it, I picked up stitches from where I'd left kind of that gap in the center of the collar, and I knit one half of the button band, and then I picked up stitches again from those same stitches, and I knit the other half of the button band, and then I kept the stitches at the top of the button band like live, instead of binding off like with a Kitchener stitch like I normally would for a double knit button band. So I kept those live, and then I picked up stitches all the way around the neck opening, and then put the other stitches, like the other live stitches from the other half of the button band, back on the needle as well. And then I worked double knitting for, I think it was about 6 centimeters for the collar. I didn't do any sort of increases or anything for the collar. I just did 6 centimeters straight of double knitting on 2.5 millimeter needles, and then I closed it off with Kitchener stitch. I don't think my Kitchener stitch looks very neat. I don't know if I did it a bit too tightly or what, but I think it could look a bit neater, but it's okay still. The one thing I would probably change about the collar if I were to do it again would be at some point to add, I wouldn't do a purl row to encourage it to fold outwards really, because I don't think a purl row would look good on the double knitting, but probably, I know I've heard some people say that in petite knit patterns sometimes when she does a folded collar, that's done in double knitting or in rib, I think she will do because when you're doing double knitting you normally do like one row on one side of the fabric and one row on the other side of the fabric. She has you do an extra row on one side of the fabric to encourage it to fold, and I would probably try to do something similar to this to just encourage it to fold outwards and sit a bit nicer. I don't know if I should have blocked it in place, like folded outwards. I just blocked it straight up, and I think I kind of have to turn it down relatively often. I don't know if it's something that's going to really change with wear, or if I block it in place it'll probably sit a bit better. I don't know if I'd made it a bit taller it probably would sit better still, but I'm not going to go back and redo it. But that's, consideration for next time I make a polo tee, because I think I'm going to make more. I think this turned out so nice. And for the buttonholes, I followed again Florence Miller's tutorial. She has a tutorial on how to do a double knit button band, where I think she goes through how to do buttonholes. It's either that or her step-by-step cardigan tutorial, one of them. She explains how to do buttonholes without breaking the yarn, and I follow that tutorial and I think they turn out really neat. It was very easy to do and they look really nice, and then I just sewed buttons on the other side, and I'm really happy with how neat the actual button placket looks. So after doing all of that, I went back and I finished the body, and I worked. So the body altogether is 27 centimeters. I worked increases for 15 centimeters, and I worked decreases for 12 centimeters. And I did 4 sets of decreases and 4 sets of increases. So the width below the armholes and at the very bottom is the same, but it decreases in the middle where my waistline is, and then it increases back out again. And I really like the flared look that gives. Like, it was a look that I was specifically going for. And then again I did a folded hem. So after, I think in this case I didn't finish the increases and then I worked 10 more rows, but when I finished the increases I did a purl row, and then I knit 9 more rows, bound off and sewed it down. So that's kind of how I did it. But I'm really, really happy with the final result of it. I think it looks really nice and it fits how I wanted it to fit, and the fabric is so good. It was my first time knitting with the Knitting for Olive Merino in just plain stockinette on 3mm needles, and this fabric is so nice, it feels so nice to wear, and I'm so happy with it, so would definitely recommend. I don't know if I'm going to put like very detailed notes about this on Ravelry, like stitch counts and everything, like I did for my other self-drafted piece that I made, the ruffle cami, because this is a bit more complicated, and also I think it would require a lot more knitting intuition than that did if you wanted to make something similar. There are polo neck patterns out there that you could follow. I know Peonia has a couple of them, but there's other ones out there as well. And so I probably won't do that, especially because I did, when I first did all my calculations, I did essentially write out a pattern for myself, but I then went back and modified things as I was doing it, and I'm not sure I took very good notes of that. So I think, like, I wouldn't feel very confident sharing a pattern for this of any kind, even if it's just like a this is how I did it sort of thing, because I don't think I have a very well written version of it. But I went through the process at least, and I'm so happy with this. So that's one project out of the way. Next up, I have another finished object. This one I'm going to talk quite briefly about, I think, because it's one that you have seen before. Actually, it's a second mixed rip cami, and I think last time I'd just gotten the yarn for this. I got a few different colours of the Knitting for Olive Merino and Cotton Merino to make some more camisoles. This is the Merino in the colourway Claret, which is a really beautiful red that I absolutely love, and that has gotten a lot of compliments on Instagram. People really seem to like it, but I haven't seen many people knit with this online. So I'm really excited that I get to share this, because I think it's a beautiful colorway that needs more advertisement. But I knit a mixed rip cami in the Thundercloud Cotton Merino, again from Knitting for Olive, a couple of months ago, and I've been wearing that so much. I think it's the most perfectly fitting cami. It was such a pleasure to knit. I really enjoyed it. It's a mixed rib look, as the pattern name would suggest. And I didn't find it particularly tasking on my hands to knit. For the very beginning, where you have to knit flat, you do have to do twisted pearls on the wrong side. I didn't find that particularly difficult or like straining for my hands, and so overall I thought it was a very enjoyable knitting experience, and I was very happy to go back and make another one. I wouldn't exclude like the possibility of making more in the summers to come. But I ended up deciding to go for the red. I had a couple of ideas of patterns that I wanted to potentially make with this colour that I went through last time, but this was the one that ended up catching my heart. So very briefly, you start at the back of the neck, you just cast on straight, you do no shaping for the back, and you work straight down for X amount of centimetres, and then you work some increases for the armholes, put stitches on hold, and then pick up stitches and work shaping for the two halves of the front before joining together and casting on stitches in the middle. Work straight for a while again, and then increase back out and join everything in the round. And then from there you have the option to do some waist shaping. Let's see if I can get my camera to focus on it. I hope that you can see. Essentially, from where you cast on stitches at the underneath the armhole, you work decreases, and I don't think the pattern really gives a set amount of like a number of decreases for you to work. I just decreased until I had the same number of stitches from this stockinette panel as in all of the other stockinette panels that are in pattern for the rest of the piece, and I find that works really well for me. It's the same as I did last time, and I'm really happy I did it again. And then I just bound off with, I think I did do a surprisingly stretchy bind off in this case, which I believe the pattern recommends. And then you go ahead and pick up stitches to knit I-cord all the way around the armholes and the neckline, and I think that gives a really neat result. It's very nice. Like, I found it to be not entirely mindless like stockinette, but very comfortable to knit, and so it was a very enjoyable knitting experience. I did also want to mention, like, I don't think, because I've had some people talk about the fact that when they go from knitting flat to knitting in the round, they're twisted, like they're twisted knit stitches essentially, like the columns tend to lean more to one side than the other. I think I got that a bit more in this one than I did in the grey one that I made. In that one, I noticed no difference at all. I think in this one, there maybe is a little bit of difference, but it's not as evident as some of the other ones I've seen. And I'm not really sure, like, I wasn't doing anything different, but my twisted rib does tend to lean towards one side, like whether I knit it flat or in the round. So it's not like it's centered when I knit it flat and then it moves to one side when I knit it in the round. It's always to one side. So I don't know if that's really the difference or what. Nevertheless, I don't think anyone can really tell. And I think this is a really beautiful piece that I've already gotten to wear many times. I will say, because this camisole is knit in the merino, but it was a really airy, like lacy type of piece, and I knew that like I was going to be able to wear it. It probably wasn't going to be too hot. With this one, because it is a bit more solid fabric, I was afraid that it would maybe be a bit too warm to wear really in the summer. I probably wouldn't wear it on like a 40-degree day, but I've not found it to be that warm, to be honest. I've gotten plenty of wear out of it in the past month. Because I knit this quite quickly after the last podcast, so I have gotten a few weeks of wear out of it already, and I've really had no issues with it. I don't find it itchy, I don't find it sticky or anything. I don't find it more uncomfortable than any other like cotton or linen garments that I have, really, which was a very pleasant surprise. So I'd probably still choose linen on like a really hot day anyways, but I'm really happy with this. I think it because it's such a lightweight yarn, it's a very light fingering weight yarn. I think that really helps because the finished fabric is quite thin, simply. So that's really all I have to say about that. Very happy with that project. Let's start with my most recent whip, because this is a very recent update just from the weekend. I cast this on Thursday evening, on Friday, something like that. And so this only has like a couple of days of work on it, 3 days tops, and it's quite far forward already. This is another camisole. I was thinking kind of all week about how I wanted to use this really beautiful dark Cognac cotton merino. A lot of knitting for olive yarn going on in this video. I promise it's the last project that I have using knitting for olive yarn. But I was thinking about how to use this lovely yarn in this beautiful colour, and I had a lot of ideas for it. I shared a few different patterns that I thought would be a good fit for this colour in the last episode, and I think most of them were at about a 24 stitch gauge, which with this yarn you would get a pretty holy fabric with, and I was gonna have to faff a bit around with gauge, and I just wasn't feeling very inspired by any of them. Like I was when I shared them last time, but at the moment I wasn't feeling very inspired to knit any of them like right now. And my main contender for this one was the olive top by Pernille Larsen. But again, I wasn't feeling so convinced about it. I still want to knit that top, but I don't know that this is the right colour for it. I don't know what colour I want to knit it in, but I wasn't feeling drawn to it. I ended up deciding that I wanted to knit this in just plain 2x2 rib. I wanted like a v-neck camisole in 2x2 rib. It's something I've been wanting to do all summer. I wasn't sure what colour I was going to make it in, but I think just a plain v-neck 2x2 rib cami would be something very wearable for me. And I ended up going for the Knitting for Olive white top, or the Pernille Larsen white top. And so that's what I've been working on all weekend. I've been at the seaside for a couple of days, and I only brought this project and I did a lot of knitting. This is just 2x2 rib on 3mm needles again, and now I have just barely started the shaping. So you can see I've got all of these markers going on for the front, but you can't really see any of the shaping yet. I've literally done like 3 rows of it, but it has some really lovely shaping around the cups before you then split for the front and back, and then you work the neckline. It's a v-neck on the front, and then just like straight down where you split for front and back, I think. At the back you just continue straight down, or like straight across, and then you seam the straps down I think you do an I-cord edge around the back and then you seam the straps down to that. We'll update you when I make more progress on it, but just for now it's just a tube of 2x2 rib that I think looks really, really good. It's a bit, well, it looks really good. It's a bit messy. It's not blocked yet, and it probably would look neater in the merino than it does in the cotton merino, but it's been so enjoyable to knit, and I think if you don't look at it like so up close, like once it's actually going to be worn, I think it'll look really lovely. So I'm really happy with how this is going so far. I just wanted like an easy, mindless project for the weekend, and I got through like quite a lot of it. So I'm very happy with this. I think I'm probably going to be able to finish it this week. So that's been my weekend project, but I actually started another project a couple of weeks ago that I've made a little bit less progress on, and that is a dress. I really want to knit some dresses. I would love to make myself like a really beautiful cable knit dress for the winter. We're gonna come back to that. But in the meantime, I have two plans for like two different dresses that I want to make this summer. One, which is the one that I'm currently working on, which is the Daphne dress by Friday Knits, which is a really beautiful, like tight fitted bodice, puffy sleeves, and sort of loose round skirt type of dress. And that's going to be more of a mini dress. I think it's such a beautiful piece with lovely details. I love the mohair sleeves. It's my first time working with mohair, and I think they're turning out so sweet. But I saw a version of one of the testers that made it in black. And obviously if I'm going to make a dress, I'm going to make it in black, because if I'm going to spend so much time working on a piece, I want it to be my favourite colour. But just seeing it, I think, really solidified the idea of it for me. And so this is where I'm at with it so far. I have finished working the body, and I've knit both straps. This has I-cord straps, and then I'm currently working on one of the mohair sleeves. So where to start from this? I'm going to talk about the yarn for a second first. So I was considering about like kind of what yarn I wanted to use for this. Obviously it's a really lovely like mini dress, so it would make sense to make it for summer in a lovely cotton yarn, but because the sleeves are going to be mohair anyways, I felt like it wasn't really going to be very summer appropriate anyways, and at least like it wasn't going to be a really hot weather kind of dress anyways, and so I thought I would push it a bit further and make it more of an end of summer autumn type of dress and knit it in a cotton merino blend. I'm using the Lana Gatto MerinoCot yarn, which I have used before for my red ruffle cami. I just bought it in a different colorway. I bought it in black. I think this is, yeah, it's 125 meters per 50 grams, and I am knitting this on 4mm needles. I swatched for it on, I think I maybe swatched for it on 3.5mm. Because the pattern recommends 3.75 millimeters for the main yarn, and you should get a 22 stitch gauge. I think I swatched on both 3.5 and 4 millimeters, and I got closer gauge on 4mm needles, so that's what I'm currently using. And then I think it recommends a 20 stitch gauge on 4mm needles for the sleeves, or like for the mohair anyways. I don't know if I swatched for it or if I didn't, but I stuck to the 4mm for that. And I am using, I don't have a full ball of it here, but I'm using the Sesia Vivienne mohair, again in the black. I think this is color 67. This is my first time using mohair, so I don't really have much like meter for comparison, if that makes sense. But it feels quite soft. It doesn't feel itchy to work with at all, so I'm hoping it's going to be okay. But I have been having some slight issues with it, which I will be coming back to in a second. So construction wise, you knit the bodice top down, so you cast on and then you work short rows to shape the like sweetheart neckline, which, let's see if I can, yeah, I think you can see that. It's still curling it in a little bit, definitely not as badly as it was before I did the I-cord edging for it and put the straps on it, but it is still curling in a little bit, so I'm hoping blocking will fix that. But you do that, and you, at the same time, you work a really lovely slip stitch detail along the cups essentially, and at the sides as well. I really do not think you're going to be able to see that in the black yarn. Maybe you can, I don't know. You work slip stitch, like a couple of columns of slip stitches that I think are gonna, like, are meant to give a seamed look to it, and add a bit of structure, and I think it looks really beautiful. And then the back panel has a ribbed section in the middle of it to just give some stretch. Once you finish the body, you go back and you work I-cord, like applied I-cord all the way along the top, and you bind off in I-cord bind off at the bottom as well. And the pattern suggests you do not work I-cord along the top of the ribbed section, which I think makes sense from like a logical standpoint, because the I-cord will limit the stretch of the ribbing, but I really did not like the look, and so I worked I-cord over it anyways. This is still, like, I worked it slightly more loosely, but I think this is still plenty stretchy enough for me, and I've tried it on, I can get it over my head, it fits me okay, so I'm gonna stick with that. And then I bound off with I-cord all the way across the bottom as well. And again, that worked quite nicely, though it is curling up a bit still at the moment. From there, you can either go on and knit the skirt, or you can do the sleeves first. I decided to do the sleeves first, which the pattern does say you can do that, so you don't then have to knit the sleeves with so much fabric going around already, which I thought was a smart recommendation, and so I went with that. So I knit the I-cord straps, and then I picked up stitches and started knitting the first mohair sleeve. Now, you knit this in a single strand of mohair, and I did not have 4mm 40cm cable needles, so I was doing this magic loop, and I had a bit of an issue with the yarn breaking where like the loop was for the magic loop, but it wasn't breaking on the row that I was working on, it was breaking like several rows below, just because of the tension that the loop was putting on the fabric. And so that happened a couple of times, and it was a bit of a faff to fix, but I was far along enough with it already that I didn't really want to just rip back and restart. So I did fix it, and I don't think you can see it, like I can't tell where that happened at all, so I think it's okay. But I was afraid of that continuing to happen, and I was afraid that that would really like compromise the structural integrity of the sleeves, and so I did end up ordering 40cm 4mm needles, which I don't think are as comfortable to knit on because the needles themselves are shorter, like the needle tips, but it's been so much nicer for the mohair itself, and I think the result is looking so lovely. It's really fluffy, and I think, I don't know, they just give me really like princess vibes. I think it's gonna be so cute, and so yeah, that's just what I'm currently working on. I'm gonna finish this sleeve. You then work decreases before you bind off to make it sort of a balloon shape, and then I'm gonna do the other sleeves, and then I'll start working on the skirt. I will say I have already planned on making one modification to the skirt, which is going to be doing more increases, because I think for the skirt you pick up from the I-cord bind off, and you work a round of increases, and then you don't work any more increases from there. I compared the pattern measurements for the skirt to other similar type of dresses that I own that I really like the fit of, and I realized there was about like a 20cm difference in the circumference of the skirt, like at the very bottom of the skirt, from what I personally like with the dresses that I already have. And so I think I am going to work extra increases along the two sides of the skirt to make it a bit more round even. So I did get some extra yarn. I think I calculated based on the meterage how much of this yarn I should get, and I think it was just over like about 7.5 balls of this. I ended up getting 9. I hope that's going to be enough. And then another thing that I'm thinking about doing, because the pattern has a little mohair ruffle along the neckline that you do after you finish the sleeves, I'm thinking of adding, because I should have enough mohair left over for that, I'm thinking of adding a similar ruffle to the bottom hem of the skirt as well, because I think it's going to be really cute. But I will update you on how that goes, hopefully next time. We'll see, because it's going to be, like, the skirt I think is going to be quite a lot of knitting, but also it's just going to be stockinette. So I think it'll be a good stockinette project to have going forward. And then last but not least, I will give you a little update on my Campanula tee. I think last time I showed this, I had just joined in the round underneath the arms, and so I have made a little bit of progress on it. This is so chaotic because I have the armholes on hold on a piece of string, but I did work some increases. I think I worked 3 rounds of decreases out of 7 that I meant to do, but I've not really made that much progress on this. I'm actually quite inspired to work on this at the moment, but I've just been so taken up with doing other things, and because I have to keep track of like each row that I'm knitting on to know when to do the decrease, I didn't want to bring this with me as my weekend project. And also I can knit 2x2 rib very mindlessly. I can't knit this mixed rib pattern very mindlessly, so we will hopefully see some more progress on this going forward. But I'm at this point, this is just like an everyday, like an every podcast episode little update, and hopefully by the end of the year this will actually be finished. At this point I have decided to make this long sleeve. Hopefully I'm gonna have enough yarn for it, but because of that I'm not feeling in too much of a rush to finish this. I'm kind of prioritizing camisoles still and like dresses and stuff. And then I think I started saying earlier that like there were 2 dress patterns that I really want to make this summer, even though it's a bit late maybe for that. But the other pattern I ended up not mentioning earlier actually just came out, and it's the Peonia dress by the KnittingFlem. And the pattern just came out this weekend and I bought it immediately, and I am so excited to work on that. I want to make like a full-length version, or like a midi version, like the longest version there is, because I think it looks so flattering. And she was explaining it in her last video and she really did think of everything. Like it's so, I think it's so thoughtfully constructed that I'm really, really excited to knit that. But I don't yet have the yarn for it, and I don't yet know what yarn I actually want to pick up for it. And also I kind of want to finish this dress first, and then I'm gonna get started on that one. I don't think I'll be able to really finish it by the end of the summer, so it might kind of get over into the autumn, but that's okay. I still just really wanted to mention it, especially because it just came out. So that is sort of my knitting roundup at the moment. I think it's been a bit longer than usual since the last episode, but I did take like over a week long break from knitting, I think just after filming that, just to give my hands a bit of a break, because I've been working with lots of small needles and I think it's good to kind of take a bit of a break sometimes. So I feel like I had quite a lot of progress, but like just very concentrated on a few knits rather than lots of progress spread out on multiple different projects. But I hope this was helpful. I don't have any acquisition to talk about this time. The only yarn that I bought was the one for the dress, and I think that's about it really. I don't really know what I'm gonna cast on next. I think this is kind of, I'm happy with where I'm currently at. I want to make progress on the dress. I think this week I'm gonna really focus on the white top and try to finish it this week so I can get a good amount of wear out of it still, and then I'll see. I did still want to make the twist loop top with the leftover Thundercloud grey yarn that I have, the cotton merino. We'll see if I get around to it this summer, or if I want to start focusing on more autumnal knits already, because I have been starting to put together like a pattern list for the autumn that I'm really excited to knit on. So I don't know, we'll see. But just a little update for you. I would love to know what you have been working on this month. I know a lot of people are working on summer knits, but a lot of people don't like summer knitting, and so they're still working on jumpers all throughout the summer. So I would love to know which team you are on, I suppose, and what you've been working on recently. And thank you for sticking around to the end. So I hope you have a really lovely evening, and I will see you soon with another update. Bye bye.